What if I told you that a diabetes drug and a low-carb diet might be working in surprisingly similar ways, but with very different long-term consequences? Millions are turning to Ozempic to lose weight, but is it better than simply going keto? Or are we missing something much bigger here? Before you inject or restrict, you need to hear this. Because the way these two methods impact your body might surprise you and change your approach to health forever. When it comes to weight loss today, we're seeing two major approaches rise to the surface. On one hand, you've got pharmaceutical breakthroughs like Ozempic, part of a class of drugs called GLP-1 agonists. They're making headlines, flying off pharmacy shelves, and promising fast, effortless fat loss. On the other hand, there's the time-tested food-based method, the ketogenic diet, which swaps carbs for fat, triggers your body to burn its own energy stores, and has helped countless people transform their health. Now here's the big question. Are they really that different? Or is there more overlap than we think? Hello everyone, welcome back to Senior Health Essentials, your go-to channel for practical, science-backed tips to help us all live longer, feel stronger, and stay sharp through our golden years. In this video, I want to walk you through some fascinating observations and a few surprising truths that came to light when reviewing studies on Ozempic and keto. The inspiration for this breakdown comes from Tom Dower, a familiar name in the keto world. He recently pulled together a set of studies comparing how these two approaches affect appetite, metabolism, and fat loss. Now, I'll be honest, I was really hoping someone had already done a proper head-to-head trial, where one group does keto and another takes Ozempic, to see what truly works better over time. But we're not there yet. Instead, we'll be looking at these independently studied approaches side by side, examining the data, asking the right questions, and connecting the dots. Because here's what I've noticed. Many people jump into a diet or onto a medication without really understanding how it works in the body. And when you don't understand what's happening under the surface, it's easy to fall for the hype, or worse, to miss out on something that could work better for you in the long run. So this isn't just a comparison video. It's not about picking sides. It's about helping you think critically, make informed choices, and understand what these approaches really do inside your body. Because whether you're trying to lose a few stubborn pounds or tackling serious metabolic issues, the path you choose matters, especially when we consider long-term sustainability, muscle preservation, inflammation, and how your body handles fuel. Along the way, I'll also share some clinical observations, things I've seen with my own patients, some surprising things, some caution, and some incredibly hopeful. But here's something I want you to think about as we begin. Is quick weight loss really the goal? Or is the goal long-lasting health that doesn't rely on prescriptions forever? And if the answer is the latter, are we overlooking a powerful, food-based solution that has been hiding in plain sight? Let's dive into the details and take a closer look at what the research really says. Because once you understand how these tools work and how they compare, you'll be better equipped to make the best decision for your health, your lifestyle, and your future. Now let's move into science and see what's really going on inside the body with each approach. If a tiny shot could make you feel full, eat less, and melt away fat, would you take it? Before you answer, let's unpack what's really going on inside your body when you're on a GLP-1 drug like Ozempic. There's a lot of buzz around weight loss medications these days. You've probably heard names like Ozempic, Wegovy, or Mounjaro floating around, maybe from a friend, your doctor, or the news. And for good reason. People are seeing real results. But what's actually happening in your body when you take these medications? Why are they so effective? And what are the hidden nuances that we might not be hearing enough about? Let's talk about GLP-1s, a class of medications originally designed for people with type 2 diabetes. The way they work is surprisingly elegant. These drugs mimic a natural hormone in your gut, glucagon-like peptide 1, or GLP-1 for short. Normally, your body releases this hormone after you eat. It sends a signal to your brain that says, "You're full, stop eating." It also slows down how quickly your stomach empties, so you feel satisfied longer. Now imagine being able to activate that feeling without the big meal. That's what these shots do. They trick your brain into thinking you've just eaten even when you haven't. As a result, your appetite drops, cravings fade, and you naturally eat less. You don't have to count calories, set alarms, or rely on willpower alone. The medication does the heavy lifting when it comes to appetite control. In fact, one specific study used a crossover design, meaning the same group of people were tested under both conditions, with and without Ozempic. The results? Those on Ozempic consumed 725 fewer calories per day, mostly by eating less at lunch and dinner. Over time, this led to a 5-kilogram loss in fat mass, about 11 pounds, compared to when they weren't on the drug. But the data suggests that, for many people, GLP-1s don't cause severe muscle wasting, as long as the person stays somewhat active and nourished. Here's where it gets interesting. This feeling of fullness that GLP-1 drugs create is very similar to how you might feel after a big, satisfying meal. Thanksgiving dinner kind of full. You know that moment when you push the plate away and think, I couldn't eat another bite. That's the satiety effect these medications replicate, and they do it consistently. But there's more to this story than just appetite suppression. Some people describe the feeling as not just full, but indifferent. Food no longer has the same pull. That may sound like a dream come true for someone who struggled with emotional eating, but for others, it can feel strange, even uncomfortable, to suddenly lose interest in something that was once so central to their daily life. And like anything powerful, this tool isn't perfect. Some people experience nausea, fatigue, or GI upset. Others find it harder to exercise because their energy dips too low. The satiety is real, but so are the side effects, and everyone's experience is different. So, is this a magic fix? Not quite, but it is a compelling option, especially for people who have tried other methods and haven't gotten the results they hoped for. Still, the big question remains, is eating less enough? Or should we also be thinking about what we're eating, how we're fueling our bodies, and whether these tools are part of a larger lifestyle change? Because while these drugs may help reduce calories, they don't automatically teach us how to nourish our bodies, build healthy habits, or maintain weight loss long-term. And that's where things get more complex, and where we'll be heading next. Let's now turn to how the ketogenic or low-carb diet compares, not just in terms of numbers on a scale, but in what's happening under the hood, deep in your metabolism. What if you could eat satisfying meals, feel full, lose fat, and never count calories again, all by shifting what you eat, not how much? There's something powerful about the idea of freedom, especially when it comes to food. Freedom from constant hunger, from calorie counting apps, from the guilt that follows a big meal. That's why the ketogenic diet has resonated with so many people. But let's move beyond the hype and ask a more meaningful question. What's really happening in your body when you go keto, and how does it compare to medications like Ozempic? Here's what we know from the data. A high-protein, low-carb diet, think 30 to 40% of your calories coming from protein and the rest mostly from fat, has been shown to reduce daily caloric intake by about 160 to 200 calories. It might not sound dramatic at first, especially compared to the 700-plus calorie reductions seen with GLP-1 drugs, but the results speak for themselves. Participants still lost about 2 kilograms of fat mass, that's roughly 4.4 pounds, over time. Now here's the key. This weight loss didn't happen because someone told them to eat less. There was no strict calorie quota, no constant monitoring. Instead, their bodies naturally responded to the way they were eating. Hunger decreased and appetite recalibrated, without the need for pharmacological intervention.
Well, personal is it often from every time working out?
That's one of the most underrated aspects of the keto approach. You don't need a shot to suppress your appetite. Your body does it for you when you shift the way it's fueled. That's what makes keto so fascinating. It encourages your metabolism to switch from burning carbs to burning fat, both the fat you eat and the fat you've stored over the years. And that shift changes everything. Imagine your body like a hybrid car. Normally, you're running on gasoline, carbs, but with keto, you flip the system, and now you're running cleanly on electricity, fat. The engine gets quieter, you go further, and most importantly, you stop feeling like you're always running on empty. That low-grade hunger, that roller coaster of energy highs and crashes, it evens out. That's why many people report feeling more stable, more focused, and yes, less hungry on a ketogenic diet. And it's not just about eating less, it's about craving less. That's a subtle but important distinction. Let me give you a quick example. Say you're someone who loves bananas. On a standard keto plan, you might cut them out. Too much sugar, too many carbs. At first, that feels like a sacrifice. But a few weeks in, you may not want the banana anymore. Not because someone told you not to have it, but because your cravings have shifted. You're satisfied. The banana no longer calls your name. Now compare that to someone on Ozempic. They may skip the banana too, but for a different reason. The shot blunts the hunger signal, so the banana just doesn't seem appealing. In the end, the result is similar, no banana, but the mechanism is completely different. One is internal, metabolic, and lasting. The other is external, pharmacological, and often temporary. And that brings us to a deeper point. The keto diet isn't just about cutting carbs. It's about retraining your metabolism, teaching your body to function in a different, more sustainable way. That takes time. It's not as immediate as a weight loss drug, and it might not be as flashy, but it's rooted in lifestyle, not prescriptions. And that makes it powerful, because when it works, it doesn't just change what you eat, it changes how you relate to food altogether. So yes, the weight loss may be slower, but it comes with fewer side effects, greater metabolic flexibility, and a real chance. Let's take this one step further. If both approaches, keto and GLP-1 drugs, lead to reduced hunger, how do they impact your body's deeper systems, your inflammation levels, your energy production, your muscle retention? That's exactly where we're heading next, because the way you lose weight matters just as much as the fact that you lose it. Let's explore what happens inside your body, from visceral fat to clean metabolism, and why it might make all the difference in your long-term health. Can a shot shrink dangerous belly fat by nearly 25%? And is that actually the healthiest way to do it? When we talk about weight loss, most people are thinking about the number on the scale, the size of their clothes, or how they look in the mirror. But there's a deeper layer of fat that matters even more, and that's visceral fat. This is the kind of fat that wraps around your organs, your liver, your pancreas, your intestines. You don't always see it, but it's there. And it's one of the biggest predictors of serious health issues like heart disease, insulin resistance, and even cancer. So when a study shows that people taking a GLP-1 drug like Ozempic experienced a 24.7% reduction in visceral fat, that's not something to ignore. That's a huge win, especially for individuals who are significantly overweight and need to make a change fast to protect their health. It's like lifting pressure off vital systems in the body, and in some cases, it could even be life-saving. That said, it's also important to look at how that fat is being lost, because while medications like Ozempic do deliver real results, they don't always produce the same kind of metabolic benefits that come from diet-based interventions like keto. Think about it like cleaning out your garage. You can either shove things into a closet so they're out of sight, or you can actually sort, donate, and organize. Both make the space look better, but only one changes the system in a meaningful way. One concern with GLP-1 medications is what happens after someone stops using them. Many people experience weight regain, not just a few pounds, but a full rebound. Why? Because the root behavior hasn't changed. Hunger comes back, cravings come back, and unless something else has shifted, like diet, mindset, or activity, the body just returns to old patterns. That's why these medications are often described as tools, not solutions. They can help you get over the hump, that tough starting point where motivation is low and the weight feels immovable. And that can be incredibly empowering for people who've struggled for years. But if the shot is the only thing changing, it's likely the results won't stick. Now, let's look at the ketogenic diet from another angle. Beyond just helping with fat loss, keto seems to offer something deeper, a metabolic reset. By reducing carbohydrate intake and increasing fat as a fuel source, the body switches into a state called nutritional ketosis. In this state, your cells begin to run on ketones, a cleaner, more efficient energy source than sugar for many people. When you're burning fat for fuel, especially your own body fat, you're not just losing weight. You're creating a metabolic environment that supports lower inflammation, better energy, and more stable blood sugar. Unlike weight loss from calorie restriction or medications, the shift in keto is internal. It rewires how your body wants to operate. There's also a question researchers are still exploring. Do GLP-1 drugs put the body into ketosis? It's suspected that some users may experience a form of pharmacological ketosis because they're eating so little. But most studies don't measure ketone levels directly, so we just don't know for sure. What we do know is that the mechanism behind keto-induced ketosis is different. It's nutritional, food-based, and often comes with clearer long-term metabolic improvements. In my clinical experience, the difference is like night and day. I've seen patients who lose weight on a GLP-1, but still eat a highly processed, high-sugar diet, just in smaller portions. They're still fueling their bodies with the same low-quality energy, and while the weight goes down, their metabolic health doesn't always improve in the same way. They're running the same machine, just with less gas in the tank. Keto, on the other hand, asks the body to switch fuels entirely, and that shift can change everything, not just how much weight you lose, but how your body feels, performs, and recovers. It's not a quick fix, but it may offer a deeper kind of healing. So yes, GLP-1s can dramatically reduce visceral fat, but we also have to ask, what kind of transformation are we after? Is it just about trimming fat, or is it about building a healthier, more resilient metabolism? The answer to that may shape how we approach the next step in our health journey and how we choose to sustain the results we've worked so hard to earn. In the next section, we'll dig into muscle preservation, exercise limitations, and whether combining strategies like keto and GLP-1s might actually give you the best of both worlds, or backfire entirely. Let's explore that balance. Is combining a weight loss drug with keto and intense exercise the ultimate fat-burning strategy, or a dangerous mix you should think twice about? So when someone loses weight, whether it's through diet, medication, or a combination, one of the first questions we should be asking is, what kind of weight are they losing? Now, here's where it gets interesting. Weight loss through a ketogenic or low-carb diet often comes with something we call cleaner metabolism. What that means is this. When your body switches from burning sugar to burning fat, especially your own stored fat, it becomes more efficient at producing energy, and you begin oxidizing fat at a higher rate. You're not just eating fewer calories, you're using fuel in a completely different way. And when you combine that fat-burning mode with resistance training or high-intensity interval training, especially while keeping protein intake high, you don't just burn fat, you preserve muscle. Sometimes you even build muscle while losing fat. That's the kind of result we want. Studies show that pairing a low-carb, higher-protein diet with high-intensity training, what many call HIIT, results in better retention of lean mass, improved insulin sensitivity, and more targeted fat loss, especially around the abdomen. It's a powerful combination. But what happens when you throw a GLP-1 medication like Ozempic into the mix? Well, things get a bit more complicated. These medications do an excellent job at reducing appetite and helping people lose fat, but they can also lower overall energy levels. That full post-meal feeling tends to make people want to slow down, not speed up. In fact, many users report fatigue or just a general lack of drive to move. So when it comes to intense workouts like strength training or sprints, the motivation and even the capacity just isn't there. That's a real trade-off, because while you might be losing weight on the scale, you could also be skipping the very workouts that would protect your muscle mass and boost your metabolism in the long run. And here's another important layer to consider. Combining keto with a GLP-1 drug can increase the risk of side effects. Think about it. You're stacking two very powerful interventions. Keto itself, when done correctly, is like a prescription strength change in metabolism. Add in a potent appetite suppressant that slows digestion and alters gut hormones, and for some people, that combination is just too much. In practice, what that means is more nausea, more fatigue, and in some cases, dizziness or dehydration. It doesn't happen to everyone, but when it does, it can derail progress, or even send someone back to square one. That's why, in clinical settings, the most effective approach often begins with one tool, usually diet. Build the foundation with food first. Get the body into fat-burning mode naturally. Then, if needed, consider medication as a secondary step. That way, the body isn't being overwhelmed with change. It's being coached into it gradually, with fewer surprises and more sustainability. So, here's something to reflect on. Are you trying to lose weight at all costs? If you want to preserve your energy, your muscle, and your long-term function, you need more than just a drop in appetite. You need a plan that respects how the body adapts, especially after 50, 60, 70 years of living in a certain rhythm. The takeaway here isn't that combining keto and GLP-1s is a bad idea. For some people, it can work, but it must be done with caution and ideally with medical supervision. Because when you mix two strong forces, diet and drug, you have to make sure the body can handle the pressure. Coming up, let's look at how people can take what they've learned from either approach and actually build a lifestyle around it, one that sticks, that supports real change, and that lasts long after the scale stops moving. Let's talk about sustainability. What if the real secret to lasting weight loss isn't in what you start using, but in what you learn while using it? There's something we don't talk about enough when it comes to weight loss, and that's what happens after the shot, after the diet, after the pounds come off. Because as anyone who's walked this path knows, losing weight isn't the hardest part. Keeping it off is. And this is where we start to see a big difference between the tools we use, especially when comparing GLP-1 medications like Ozempic with lifestyle-based approaches like keto. See, GLP-1 drugs are incredibly effective at reducing appetite. They mimic a natural hormone that tells your brain you're full. As a result, people eat less and they lose weight. But here's the challenge. These medications don't come with a built-in lesson plan. They don't teach you how to eat differently. They just make you want to eat less for a while. But what happens when the medication stops? Hunger returns, cravings return, and if no habits have changed, it's easy to slide right back into the old way of eating. It's like hitting pause on your appetite, but never pressing play on a new lifestyle. That's why relapse after stopping GLP-1s is so common. Not because people are lazy or weak, but because they were never given the chance to build something sustainable while their hunger was quieted. The shot did the work, but the behavior stayed the same. Now, contrast that with something like the keto diet. Is it restrictive? At first, yes. Is it a big shift? Absolutely. But here's the key. It requires you to think about food differently. You start reading labels, you learn to cook again, you notice how certain foods make you feel. And over time, you build a toolbox of habits, things that stick with you long after the initial weight loss. That's why keto, when done thoughtfully, tends to be more sustainable. It's not just a diet. It's an education in how your body responds to food. Now, here's where things get really interesting. What if we stopped viewing these two approaches, GLP-1s and keto? Think about it. What if we use the hunger-suppressing power of a GLP-1 as a short-term tool, a window of opportunity to reset our relationship with food? Imagine this. You're on a GLP-1 and your appetite drops significantly. You're not craving sugar like you used to. You're not constantly thinking about food. Instead of coasting through that period and eating smaller portions of the same junk, you make a strategic move. You clean out your pantry. You remove the ultra-processed snacks. You stock your kitchen with real whole foods. And because your hunger is suppressed, you don't even miss what's gone. This is what some experts refer to with a powerful metaphor. Don't just medicate the fish. Clean the fishbowl. In other words, don't just suppress the symptoms while keeping the same toxic environment. Change the environment itself. Clean the water. Remove the triggers. Teach the body and the mind a new way of living. If we apply that idea to weight loss, it means using the temporary appetite control of a medication to introduce a better food environment, new habits, and clearer education. Maybe even bring in gentle coaching. Maybe start learning how to prepare low-carb meals or track basic nutrients. Because once the medication ends, and it will, the only thing left holding up your progress is the lifestyle you've built underneath it. And the truth is, most people don't want to stay on medication forever, not because it doesn't work, but because it doesn't feel like freedom. Real transformation happens when you're no longer dependent on anything outside of yourself to stay healthy, when you can make choices confidently, consistently, and in a way that aligns with your real life. So yes, GLP-1s can be a powerful starting point, but without behavior change, they're just a pause button. If we want long-term success, we need to use that pause to reprogram what comes next. In the final section, let's explore how the body's internal chemistry, from ketones to fat preferences, shifts with lifestyle changes, and how we can carry that momentum forward to avoid rebound and build a healthier, more flexible metabolism. Let's bring it all together. There's something truly remarkable happening beneath the surface when we shift how our bodies use energy. And it's not just about cutting carbs or skipping meals. It's about transforming the way your cells prefer to function. One study found that a low-carb diet activates something called PPAR, a kind of molecular switch that helps your body become better at burning fat for fuel. It doesn't just encourage fat loss, it reprograms your metabolism to favor fat as its primary energy source. And when that happens, something powerful unfolds. Fat loss becomes more efficient, muscle retention improves, and your body starts to feel more balanced. On paper, it sounds like the perfect match. Less hunger, fewer cravings, and a metabolism primed to burn fat. But the key is in how you use that combination. The most effective use of a GLP-1 isn't as a long-term crutch, something you depend on endlessly to manage your appetite. It's a short-term opportunity, a window where you can realign your habits, shift your environment, and learn to nourish your body in ways that are actually sustainable. That's when the magic happens. Not just weight loss, but transformation. But it's not without complications. Many people using GLP-1s report side effects that mirror that too full feeling after a big meal. Nausea, low energy, even a lack of interest in things they used to enjoy, a kind of emotional flatness. And when energy is down, it becomes harder to stay active, build strength, or fully engage with life. That's something worth weighing when deciding whether to rely on medication alone, because food isn't just fuel, it's part of how we live, connect, and enjoy our days. This is why the conversation shouldn't be about picking sides, keto or GLP-1, but about understanding how these tools work and how they affect us at every level. When you rely only on a drug, you may lose fat, but you may not gain insight, metabolic strength, or lasting habits. When you commit to a lifestyle change, especially one that aligns with how your body naturally operates, you're not just dropping weight, you're building a foundation. And that's what's missing from so much of the current discussion. We have data showing both sides work, but what we don't have enough of are large, well-funded, randomized clinical trials comparing GLP-1s head-to-head with lifestyle interventions like keto. Trials that measure not just weight loss, but quality of life, long-term sustainability, and real metabolic change. If we had that kind of data, it could change the way we approach chronic weight issues across the country. It could help doctors offer more personalized guidance, not just prescriptions, and it could empower more people to make informed choices based on how they want to live, not just how fast they want to lose. Until then, we can rely on what we do know, that metabolic health is about more than cutting calories or taking a shot. It's about teaching the body and the brain a new rhythm. It's about cleaning up not just what we eat, but how we think about food. And it's about stepping into a lifestyle that supports health without relying on willpower alone. If you've made it this far in the video, you're not someone looking for a quick fix. You're someone who's ready to understand, to adapt, and to move forward with clarity and intention. And that's exactly what these conversations are for. If you've made it this far in the video, you're not someone looking for a quick fix. You're someone who's ready to understand, to adapt, and to move forward with clarity and intention. And that's exactly what these conversations are for. So if you found this helpful, be sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's coming next. I post new content regularly, deep dives, breakdowns, and evidence-based strategies to help you build a life that's not only leaner, but stronger, clearer, and more sustainable. Let's keep learning together. I'll see you in the next video.